everyone. This is Lynn and Julie from Yoga Story, and we're coming to you today to talk about yoga and sobriety from alcohol.
Yeah, so Lynn and I decided during COVID that we wanted to get sober. Lynn did it first, and then I decided to join in. And we've had a lot of questions from the yoga community.
Yeah, a lot of questions
about what was the drive behind it and what we were doing, and just kind of this whole, we want to know more things. So that's what this podcast is about.
And we're in no way casting judgment. We talk a lot about it at this studio in particular. We talk a lot about your body is amoral. It's not good or bad. It's a body, and food is not. Food is amoral as well. Food is not good or bad, and so that includes alcohol. So this isn't in any means to cast judgment on anybody in the space of drinking. But you know what? I thought, Julie, we could first start off throwing this on you kind of last minute, but talking about how alcohol has really become ingrained in the yoga culture. How many times do we see? I mean, we do it. We go do yoga and beer. You have yoga and wine all the time.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's very social, especially drinking wine. It's like a lifestyle, or a lot of people think of it as kind of like a lifestyle. I have a little glass of wine, I sit on my patio. But I think and it's fun, it's something to do. It brings people together. But I think that there's a difference between having those occasional fun outings with friends and having a drink or a glass of wine, or sitting at home and like what I was doing and just drinking.
Yeah, and I think that's an important aspect of it, because we were talking with one of our other managers, Beth, about the space that you approach drinking from, or why are you drinking. And that became a lot of, at least for me, the decision to stop drinking was bringing a lot of that from the subconscious into the conscious. So let's just kind of talk about that. Julie, what was your drive behind the decision to get sober?
Well, I think, and I'm going to preface this by saying that, and I have had people just come out and point blank ask me, do you think you had a drinking problem? And I'm going to be very honest with you and say that yes, I felt like it was becoming a big problem because it was daily. And I was definitely using it as a crutch to just cope with stuff that I needed to deal with. I was preparing myself to do a 300-hour teacher training, and I knew that I was going to have to make some big changes in order to face that task head on. I just felt this pit in my stomach every day when I would wake up in the morning, just from just feeling like crap and just like I'm just wasting my time. I'm not getting anything done. And I just felt bad. I just felt like I wasn't being true to myself, that I was just really I was just like putting on a facade of, who I think I really am, but who I really was being was not who I wanted to be. So I faced it.
Yeah.
And just said, I got to quit. And I sat my family down and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And this is where it's headed. And they've been really supportive, and it's been great.
Yeah. Can we pause real quick and talk about all the questions because I got asked the same question. Well, did you have a drinking problem? And it's really interesting in our culture, and I've noticed it a lot now that I've not been drinking. And when Annie Grace mentions it in her book, This Naked Mind, how messed up our culture is when it comes to drinking, because it's really glorified. There's a lot of mommy juice, and it's wine time, and lots of glorification about needing alcohol to get through the day or to handle or deal with stress. But then when someone says or decides that they want to get sober, suddenly they have a, quote, drinking problem, end quote. And it's like, well, but that's what we've been glorifying this entire time, is using alcohol to deal with our problems. So why is it now suddenly that I have a drinking problem? It's really, and it creates, Annie Grace talks about it creating cognitive dissonance, that we're like, but I'm being told that I need alcohol, but then when I decide I don't want alcohol, then suddenly I have a problem. And that's so counter. And that was what I thought was really weird, is when I started to get those questions as well, that it was, and it was all well-meaning, but it was a lot of, well, do you feel like you have a problem? It was weird. It was just really weird to kind of get those questions. And the drive behind my decision was, a lot of it was stress management, because we did have to shut the studio down for 8 weeks during COVID, and then open up to really, really strict restrictions. So I started off getting a friend of mine and I had talked about it, and we did the 30 days together. Initially, we did This Naked Mind or the Alcohol Experiment, both by Annie Grace. Can't say enough about her books. They've really been awesome. And so I did it, and I actually stayed sober from January to March until we had to shut down the studio. And then it was just like game on from then on. It was March to May of just nothing but drinking a lot. And I felt really, really awful. Like everything felt really terrible all the time. It was really hard to get out of bed. I wasn't very motivated. And so I told myself, like, if I don't stop, this is going to be a really big problem, because the pandemic just kept going on, and they were talking like how it was now, it was summer last year that it was going to continue on if the numbers didn't go down until, the end of 2020. And now it's 2021. And while things are opened back up, it's still not normal. I mean, we're still not back to, where we were supposed to be. So I thought, I have 2 kids. And they're really spread out. An older teenager and a younger toddler. And I want to be able to be there for the toddler as I get older. And what I was doing was not going to enable me to be there fully for him and for my business. This is my passion. This is my purpose. So that was the drive behind my decision when I started again in May of last year to really do this, not just reassess or reevaluate or cut back. It was like, no, it's done. I'm done. And after it took a little while. I've been sober for over a year, and it took a little while, though, for it to not be hard. It was really hard at first. Did you find that to be true for you, Julie?
It's still hard. It's still hard. I'm thinking about, no, I'm not. I'm just kidding. No, it is hard. I stopped drinking the week before Thanksgiving. I just really kind of hit just a really low spot, and I just felt like, man, I'm done. And I have gone through periods in my life where I have not drank for up to a year or longer, just off and on. And I just decided, though, that this time there was just a different shift for me, that it was just more of okay, this is something I think I permanently want to step into and make it a lifestyle of being sober. But it is hard, and I like the taste of alcohol. I know Annie Grace talks about that we don't really like the taste of alcohol. We just think that we do, and I'm like, I don't know. I think I really like the taste of alcohol.
I really like a nice beer.
So I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's hard. So I've been sober since November, and it's been fantastic, and I feel incredible. I feel really, really good. But I still battle with the cravings, and I'm really honest about it, though. When I'm craving, it's funny because I'll sit down and I'll say to my husband, I want to drink, and so I'll start eating something or whatever, which that's another podcast. I'll just talk about that on another one, because you have to have some coping skills. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's still there. I don't think it's ever going to go away for me.
How much would you say that you were drinking on average?
Oh.
And how often?
Ooh.
That was a big conversation that I'd have with people, too, because it was a lot of, first it would be like, oh, did you have a drinking problem? And then it was like, oh, you were drinking every day?
I would every day, most of the time, at least every other day. And it would just depend on, like we would open up a couple of bottles of wine and watch Netflix, or, my kids are of drinking age and they still live at home with me. And so we would like get out, we'd play games and like, oh, let's, make some drinks. I mean, it was just, it's hard to say, but it was way too much. Let's just say it was way too much. To where you wake up in the morning and you're like, why did I do that the night before? I just feel so terrible. So yeah, there were hangovers and stuff too.
I think beer and wine were my two biggest ones. I don't really like hard alcohol, because that would be too quick. Like I was starting to drink at like 4:30 in the afternoon, 4:30, 5 o'clock. If there was something like, I don't know, morally, felt better morally if I waited till 5. That's another one of those weird things that's like, we feel better about drinking as long as we wait till a certain time. Like, I mean, there's a whole song about it, right? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Like that makes it a better choice. But I'd never like hard alcohol because that would get me too drunk too quick. So I wanted to be able to nurse it all night long. So it was 2-3, glasses of wine, but they were, nice heavy pours. They weren't just little 4-ounce glasses of wine. And it was every single night. I don't think there was a night that I wasn't drinking. So it wasn't enough to be like super bad hungover the next day, but it was enough to feel like shit. Yeah. To really to miss runs. That's been part of the social repercussions of being someone with a drinking problem. I'll just go ahead and say it, a drinking problem, was that I'd miss runs with my friends. They'd schedule something early in the morning on a Saturday and I'd cancel all the time because I couldn't get out of bed. Like, there's no reason for me to. I don't feel good, so I'm going to cancel. And so they quit inviting me. Yeah. So that was real ill. That and I got pregnant. It got real slow, but that was, another thing is I still drank when I was pregnant. I didn't drink every day. It was maybe more like once a week. It's really slowed down with that. And I drank when I was breastfeeding. It was what is statistically insignificant, I guess is what you would say. It wouldn't be enough to harm the baby. And it's not a proud moment for me to say that. But I controlled it, but I felt terrible about it. Felt like a horrible mother, judged myself, felt judged by others even though they didn't know.
I didn't know. This is the first time.
Right? There you go.
Found something else.
There you go. But so, yeah, I think I could safely say, it wasn't like I was getting drunk in the middle of the day. And again, this is not a morality thing. This is a part of the issue with society and trying to get people who have a heavy drinking problem help, is that there's a lot of judgment towards those people that why don't you just have enough willpower? Willpower doesn't work. It's not a willpower thing. It's not it's a habit. Yeah. And Annie Grace talks a lot about the cycle of craving and withdrawal that we create when we drink and then don't drink during the day and then drink at night or whatever. And you stop drinking and your body literally goes into a mini withdrawal. And so, I was there. That's where I was. I've mentioned it multiple times. The biggest tool for me was Annie Grace's books. This Naked Mind and The Alcohol Experiment. I read both of them, and they were both ones that were amazing to help me. Julie, did you have anything that you leaned on?
I did read the books, but I didn't use the books at the time that I felt like I was ready to make the big shift. I think for me, it was just like, there was just something deep inside of me that knew that I needed to change, and yoga community is really important to me. So of course I leaned on my yoga community as just, okay, this is the path that I want to go down, and this is the support system that I have, is just showing up on my mat for sure absolutely helped me with that. And being around people here at Yoga Story and having those good examples like you were already sober, and there were other people that I had talked to that were sober. That's really been my main coping thing. And also just having very honest conversations with my family, and just being really honest about it, and just not hiding it, and just saying, this is what's going on with me, and I'm struggling, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And that was really liberating. So I would say that was a coping tool. I'm not in therapy, although I recommend it, and I have been in therapy off and on all my life.
I'm in therapy. I love it. I love my therapist. I love you. I'm going to send her this podcast.
But I kind of, well, Lynn's my therapist. So, I just, like I said, I have a really good support system here. I feel like I can come in and share anything with anybody, and I feel like this is a safe space. But I'm lucky in that aspect. So I would have to say that's really been my number one thing, is yoga, and then also exercise, getting enough sleep, picking up other habits. Instead of sitting down with a glass of wine and watching TV, guess what? I've stopped watching a lot of TV. I mean, I've removed myself from that situation so that I'm not sitting there going, well, I really would like to have a drink while I'm watching, Game of Thrones. I mean, it's because I connected those two. So you have to break that. For me, I find you have to break
association.
That association. So that's another thing that I did, was breaking the association.
Yeah. I had another friend that also quit drinking at the same time, but otherwise, outside of that, I didn't really feel like I had a ton of community support, because everybody was really questioning, like, why? why would you do that? But outside of the books, it was coming to my mat. We were doing so much yoga. So much yoga to get all of the virtual stuff, and there were teachers that couldn't teach, and then we had to save on payroll, so we were doing a lot of the physical classes ourselves virtually, and it helped that I had something to show up for, and it helped that I felt good afterwards. I didn't feel like crap. I didn't feel like crap coming into the class. I felt good showing up on my mat. So that drove me to continue the habit over and over and over again of not drinking, is how good I felt. And then how, as I started to now Ironman train, like, my training has been amazing, and the swimming and the biking and the running has all felt so strong, and I've progressed in a way that I didn't used to do before. And I think a lot of that is contributed to no drinking and better rest and better nutrition. My body can absorb now nutrients to actually repair the muscle and recover correctly. But speaking of yoga, as a yoga teacher, how did you feel with the connection of your drinking and what we are trying to authentically, as we're not just showing up to teach a fitness class? I really feel like every teacher here at Yoga Story is trying to live their yoga. So how did you feel showing up to teach a yoga class and being a drinker at the time?
Not authentic. And it was a battle, a struggle, that it was really tearing me up inside, because I really do care about people, and I care about my students, and I want to have the right energy for them, and I want to do the right thing by them. And I wasn't able, in my mind, to give them that. And that was just, it just felt wrong for me. And I just felt like I needed to be real about it. Because that's how we heal.
My gosh, yes.
It's just being real and honest. And, like I said, I feel very different now teaching. I mean, I feel like, and I talk a lot in my classes about being authentic and pushing past fear and, making change, because, I mean, I'm telling you, I've lived through a lot of stuff, and this is the current chapter of just trying to get sober, and the goal of being 300 hours certified, and trying to do more with my yoga practice. I mean, it all kind of came together at the same time. So But yeah, I felt like I just wasn't being true to myself or the community, really.
Yeah. Now that you've been sober for several months, so November, and this is almost July, so 8-9 months almost.
Creeping around.
Yeah. What differences do you feel, like the issues that maybe you had before and now?
Well, I tell you, so this is funny because if you do read the book, which I highly recommend that you read Annie Grace's book, she talks about what alcohol is, and it's ethanol, friends. Mm-hmm. It is ethanol that you are putting in your system. And so if you really stop and think about that, and you think about, especially as much as I was drinking, I mean, the impact physically that it was doing to my body it was wrecking it. I feel so much better. I can still, every day I can see a little bit more of a difference, even as this much time has gone on. It's like there's still more improvement. There's still more changes. I don't have as many issues with my rheumatoid arthritis.
I was just about to ask. I didn't want to put it out there yet. It says because it's your medical condition, but do you feel better from that?
I do. I feel a lot better. I don't have as many aches and pains. I'm able to consistently exercise without having any flare-ups. I just feel better. I'm a good napper, so I'll always take naps.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm a really good napper, but I sleep better at night. I sleep more soundly. I have better relationships with people. I'm closer to my husband now than I have been in a long time, and I feel better about setting this example for my kids. So there's just so many benefits. My yoga practice feels really good. And it's funny because I've kind of moved out of fear with my practice a little bit because I was always afraid to do some things. And now I feel like I'm stepping out of that because I'm just being very real with myself. So yeah, lots of health benefits. I've lost a few pounds. That's always a good plus.
So she talks about that in her book. She lost like 15 pounds and I at first that was kind of a little bit of my motivation because we all gained a little bit of COVID weight, and I'm like, well, this will be great. I'll just get sober and lose weight. No, not a single freaking pound. So that but for me, I started to feel a lot of feelings, which was really strange. I remember having conversations with Julie, like, am I going crazy? Because now it's like a lot of feelings, a lot of wanting to cry at things that I thought were silly, a lot of really deep emotional things just came up for me, and I'm still dealing with it. Like I said, I love my therapist, XOXO, but that became one of the biggest things. I don't know if I'd call it a benefit or not just yet, but I guess it's a benefit of being able to actually feel feelings, and not being numbed during the nighttime, whenever you start drinking, because it carries with you. It's not just like you're drunk or drinking at night.
Right.
It's a cyclical thing, and so your brain has to go through certain chemicals. Your body has to do certain things to rid yourself of the toxins from alcohol. So I think it's kind of like your brain or body are busy.
Yeah.
And so the feelings and emotion parts kind of get pushed to the side. Now it's like, okay, you pushed us to the side for the last 21 years or 20 years, however old I am. As I've been drinking since I was 19, 18, something like that. And it's been, as long as I can remember, very consistent, save for pregnancy.
Yeah.
Very consistent from an early age. So to go from drinking very consistently at 18, 19, all the way up until 40 and being sober, it's like that many years of emotions and feelings and trying to deal with a lot of hurt and a lot of stuff has been a lot. But it's also a benefit of being sober and like we mentioned, you do the work of sobriety. Therapy is a big, huge one. Yoga and meditation. So where would you recommend somebody begin Julie, if you have somebody that comes up to you and be like, hey, I'd like to do this too.
I think for me, I think you just need to recognize where you're at. I think you just need to stop and take a look at where you're at and ask yourself the question, is this benefiting me? Am I doing the right thing by my body? Am I putting my health first? And then, there's some great books out there. There's, if you need somebody to talk to, definitely get in touch with a therapist or consult your doctor. Like for me, like I said, the yoga community worked for me because I'm just so blessed to be able to come here and practice and just feel the strength of everybody lifting me up. And you can have that too, coming here to Yoga Story. But yeah, and the book, get the book and read it, because she breaks it down in such a way that you understand why you're doing what you're doing, which is really interesting. She breaks down the chemical process and dispels some of the myths, and it's a great read. There's 2 books, and I've read both of them. One of them is a workbook, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, the Alcohol Experiment has an expanded edition that has some places for journaling. And This Naked Mind, it's basically This Naked Mind broken down into day-size, bite-sized pieces. And that's where I usually recommend that people start with, because that's the book that I chose. There are lots of books out there, and Annie Grace has a podcast and a community as well. Can't say enough about her. But now that you are... And I've led sobriety groups, and I have to be very clear, I'm not a therapist, I'm not an AA counselor, I'm not in any way trained in this. It's more of let's go through this book together and discuss it, and we have themes for each week and things that we focus on. And so we're doing another one in October. We're doing Sober October. We'll probably do a Dry January again. But that's a good place to begin.
Yeah, it is.
So how do you identify yourself now?
Oh gosh, you know what? I read the other day that you're not supposed to hang on to the labels of now I'm sober or I'm an alcoholic and I always will be, kind of a thing. I feel like I'm finally living my best life. I really do feel that way deep in my heart. I just feel like my mind is clear, my focus is clear. I know what I want out of life. I know how to get there. I know where my strength comes from, and it's just not having that veil hanging over me, that I had every day, whether it be a hangover or just, this suppression of feelings. That makes sense.
I go ahead and identify myself as an alcoholic because I wasn't showing up drunk anywhere. There's definitely different degrees of alcoholism. But it was definitely something that I was chemically addicted to. Like, it was a cycle. So while I wasn't showing up to work drunk or anywhere else or having such a bad hangover that I couldn't get out of bed and teach a 5:30 a.m. class, there definitely was a problem there. So I don't have any problem saying that. I kind of like the shock value of it too. When people look at me and say that, and I'm like, well, but let me tell you why. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's start to dispel some of this judgment, labeling and stigma that's attached to it, and talk about what it really is for what it is.
That's true, and that's kind of why we're doing this, because I think there's just so many people out there that when I started talking about not drinking, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, you know what, I quit drinking my 1 glass of wine every night ever since you've been posting about it on social media, and I really feel better, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm doing that. And it's so weird because, like I said, there's so many labels around it that aren't necessary, and we don't need to put that on ourselves. I think we just need to be honest with ourselves and just find a good support system. Find people that can help you work through those things and get you where you need to be.
Yep. So thank you guys for listening to us, and if you have any questions about our journey, please reach out to us, and we've got our email on the page. If we don't, then I'll just go ahead and give it to you now. grow.yogastory@gmail.com, and we would love to have you come to our classes and realize that this isn't self-care, it's community care. We all care about each other and about helping each other live their best lives.